The year was 2147, a time when humanity had stretched its reach far beyond the confines of Earth. Colonies dotted Mars and moons of Jupiter, yet nothing could have prepared them for what happened on that fateful day in August. The skies above New Geneva, Earth's capital city, darkened not with storm clouds but with something far more extraordinary, a massive alien spacecraft descending silently from the heavens. It loomed like a mountain made of polished obsidian, its surface shimmering faintly as if alive. People froze mid-step, their breaths caught in their throats. Cars screeched to halts, and drones capturing footage spiraled out of control as panic rippled through the streets below. Governments scrambled to respond, military forces mobilized, and scientists worked feverishly to analyze the object hovering ominously overhead. Clara Voss barely noticed the commotion at first. She was hunched over her desk inside a sleek research facility located just outside the city limits. Her focus was entirely consumed by the glowing holographic schematics floating before her, designs for a revolutionary energy converter capable of powering entire cities without harming the environment. Clara wasn't one for grand gestures or dramatic moments. She preferred solving problems quietly, behind the scenes. But today, fate had other plans. A sudden flash of light filled the room, accompanied by a low hum that vibrated through every cell in her body. Before Clara could react, the world around her dissolved into a blur of colors and sounds. When clarity returned, she found herself standing in an unfamiliar chamber aboard the colossal ship. The walls were smooth and metallic, pulsating faintly with an inner glow. Alien symbols floated lazily in the air, shifting and rearranging themselves like living things. Standing before her was a figure unlike anything she had ever imagined. Towering nearly twice her height, the being wore armor that gleamed like liquid silver. Its face, or what might have been its face, was obscured behind a visor etched with intricate patterns. Every movement it made radiated precision and authority. This, Clara realized with mounting awe, must be the leader of these visitors. "I am Commander Zirkin," the being said, its voice resonating deeply within the chamber. Though the words were spoken in no language Clara recognized, they somehow translated perfectly in her mind. "You are Clara Voss." She blinked, stunned. How? How do you know my name?" "There is no time for explanations," Zirkin replied, cutting her off. His tone carried neither hostility nor warmth, just an unyielding sense of purpose. He stepped closer, his towering frame casting a shadow over her. For a moment, Clara thought he might reach for her, but instead, he issued a command that left her utterly bewildered. "Human," he said, his voice steady and commanding. "You must inspect me." Clara stared at him, her heart pounding wildly. Inspect him. What did that even mean? Was this some kind of test? A threat? Or perhaps a bizarre misunderstanding born of cultural differences? Whatever it was, she didn't feel like she had much choice. The aliens clearly possessed technology far beyond human comprehension, and resisting seemed futile. "What exactly am I supposed to inspect?" she asked cautiously, trying to mask her fear with curiosity. Zirkin tilted his head slightly, as though considering her question. Then, without another word, he extended one arm toward her. The gesture was deliberate, almost ceremonial. Clara hesitated for only a second before stepping forward. Up close, the commander's armor was even more mesmerizing. It wasn't static like ordinary metal. It seemed to ripple subtly, as if responding to his presence. Tiny threads of light coursed along its surface, forming patterns too complex to decipher at a glance. Clara swallowed hard. If this truly was humanity's first contact with extraterrestrial life, then she had been thrust into the role of ambassador or guinea pig. Either way, there was no turning back now. Taking a deep breath, she reached out tentatively, her fingers brushing against the cool surface of his armor. Nothing happened. At least, not immediately. But as Clara examined the material more closely, she began to notice details that defied explanation. Faint vibrations hummed beneath her touch, rhythmic and deliberate, almost like a heartbeat. Could aliens even have hearts? And why would such a powerful being need her to examine him? Her thoughts raced as questions piled up faster than answers. One thing was certain: whatever lay ahead, it would change everything she thought she knew about the universe and about herself. Clara's mind raced as she stood before Commander Zirkin, her hand still hovering uncertainly near his gleaming armor. The silence in the chamber was deafening, broken only by the faint hum of energy that seemed to emanate from every surface around her. She felt small, insignificant even, under the towering presence of the alien leader. Yet there was something oddly calming about the way he regarded her, not with hostility or impatience, but with an almost clinical detachment. "Inspect me," Zirkin repeated, his voice steady and unyielding. His words echoed in Clara's mind, urging her to act despite her confusion. She took a step back, forcing herself to think clearly. "What exactly am I looking for?" she asked hesitantly. Her voice trembled slightly, betraying the nervousness she tried so hard to suppress. Zirkin tilted his head again, a gesture that Clara was beginning to recognize as curiosity, or perhaps contemplation. "Anomalies," he replied after a pause. "Irregularities within my systems." His answer raised more questions than it answered. Systems. Did he mean his armor? Or was there something else beneath it? Something biological, mechanical, or maybe both? Clara didn't dare ask further. Instead, she nodded slowly, trying to appear confident even though her pulse quickened with each passing second. A panel on the wall slid open silently, revealing a set of tools that looked both familiar and alien at once. There were scanners resembling handheld devices Clara had seen in engineering labs, but their designs were sleeker, more advanced. Hesitating only briefly, she picked up one of the devices, a smooth metallic object that fit perfectly into her palm, and activated it. A soft glow emanated from its surface, accompanied by a series of beeping sounds. Clara turned her attention back to Zirkin. "I'll need you to stay still," she said, hoping her tone sounded professional rather than timid. To her relief, the commander complied without hesitation, standing as rigid as a statue while she began her examination. As she moved the scanner over his armor, Clara noticed intricate patterns etched into its surface. At first glance, they appeared decorative, like ornate carvings meant to signify rank or status. But as she studied them more closely, she realized they weren't static. The lines shifted ever so slightly, almost imperceptibly, rearranging themselves in response to her movements. It was as if the armor itself was alive, reacting to her presence. "What are these patterns?" Clara murmured, mostly to herself. She glanced up at Zirkin, half expecting him to provide some explanation. He remained silent, his expression unreadable behind the visor. Focusing on the task at hand, Clara adjusted the settings on the scanner, switching to a deeper diagnostic mode. The device emitted a low whirring sound as it probed beneath the surface of the armor. Data began streaming across its display, numbers, graphs, and symbols that Clara couldn't fully understand. Some of it resembled technical readouts she'd encountered during her work on Earth, but much of it was entirely foreign. One thing became clear, however: there were anomalies. Subtle fluctuations in the readings hinted at irregularities within the commander's structure. They weren't glaring defects, but they were enough to pique Clara's interest and concern. What did these anomalies mean? Were they signs of damage, malfunction, or something else entirely? Clara paused, lowering the scanner momentarily. "These readings, they're unusual," she said cautiously. "There's something off about your armor. Can you tell me what caused this?" For the first time since their encounter, Zirkin's composure faltered. His posture stiffened slightly, and the faintest flicker of unease passed through his visor. "That is why you are here," he responded, his voice quieter now, almost hesitant. "To determine the nature of the disturbance." Disturbance. The word sent a shiver down Clara's spine. Whatever was affecting Zirkin wasn't just a minor issue. It was significant enough to warrant summoning a human engineer. The weight of responsibility settled heavily on her shoulders, but she pushed aside her doubts. If she wanted answers, she would have to keep going. Returning to her task, Clara switched to another tool, a pair of gloves embedded with sensors. Slipping them on, she placed her hands directly onto Zircon's armor. The material felt cool and smooth, yet it pulsed faintly beneath her touch, as though alive with energy. Through the gloves, Clara could feel vibrations coursing through the armor, rhythmic, deliberate, and strangely comforting. They reminded her of a heartbeat, steady and strong. But then she felt something else, a faint irregularity, barely noticeable at first, like a skipped beat. It originated from a specific spot near Zircon's chest plate. Frowning, Clara pressed harder, focusing all her attention on the area. The vibration grew stronger, almost frantic, before fading away entirely. "What did you do?" Zircon's voice cut through the silence, sharper than before. "I didn't do anything," Clara replied quickly, startled by his reaction. "There's something wrong here, something inside your armor." Zircon stepped back abruptly, breaking contact with her hands. For a moment, he simply stood there, staring down at her with an intensity that made her feel exposed. Then, without warning, he extended his arm again, gesturing for her to continue. "You must find it," he said firmly. "Whatever it is." Clara swallowed hard, her earlier confidence wavering. This wasn't just an inspection anymore. It was a puzzle, one that could have implications far beyond her understanding. And yet she couldn't deny the thrill of discovery coursing through her veins. For better or worse, she was determined to uncover the truth hidden within the commander's enigmatic armor. With renewed resolve, Clara picked up the scanner once more and resumed her examination. Little did she know, the anomaly she sought would lead her down a path far stranger and more dangerous than she could have ever imagined. As the hours stretched into what felt like days aboard the alien vessel, Clara found herself increasingly immersed in the task of inspecting Commander Zircon. The ship itself was a marvel of engineering, a labyrinth of sleek corridors and glowing chambers that seemed to pulse with life. Every detail, from the softly humming walls to the floating symbols that darted through the air, hinted at a civilization far beyond anything humanity had achieved. Yet, despite the awe-inspiring environment, Clara couldn't shake the feeling that something was deeply wrong. Her interactions with the Zorathian crew were limited but telling. They moved with mechanical precision, their movements fluid yet devoid of emotion. Occasionally, one of them would pause to observe her work, their visors reflecting faint glimmers of curiosity, or perhaps suspicion. Clara tried to engage them in conversation, asking questions about their technology, culture, or even why she had been chosen for this peculiar mission. Their responses, when given at all, were cryptic and unsatisfying. "We are caretakers," one of them finally said, its voice resonating in Clara's mind just as Zircon's had. "Balance must be maintained." Balance. Clara pressed, hoping for clarification, but the alien simply turned away, leaving her more confused than before. Despite the lack of answers, Clara gleaned fragments of information over time. The Zorathians weren't conquerors or explorers. They were stewards of cosmic equilibrium, ensuring harmony across galaxies by addressing disruptions wherever they arose. It was a noble purpose, one that inspired both admiration and unease. If such beings required her help, then whatever disrupted their balance must be extraordinarily dangerous. The anomalies within Zircon's armor continued to perplex her. Each scan revealed new layers of complexity, hinting at systems far beyond human comprehension. Some areas pulsed with steady energy, while others flickered erratically, almost as if resisting analysis. The irregularity near his chest plate, the one she had detected earlier, remained elusive, refusing to yield clear data no matter how many times she examined it. One evening, or what passed for evening aboard the ship, Clara decided to take a break. Exhaustion weighed heavily on her, not just from the physical demands of her work, but also from the mental strain of piecing together an impossible puzzle. She sat cross-legged on the floor of her temporary quarters, surrounded by holographic displays filled with readings and diagrams. Her eyes drifted to the faint glow emanating from the walls, and she wondered how long she'd been away from Earth. Days, weeks, time seemed meaningless here. Her thoughts were interrupted by a soft chime. Looking up, she saw a small device hovering in front of her, a gift from the Zorathians, presumably intended to assist her. With a sigh, she activated it, projecting additional data streams into the air. As she sifted through the information, something caught her eye. A series of repeating patterns embedded within the erratic signals coming from Zircon's armor. At first glance, the patterns appeared random, but upon closer inspection, they formed a sequence, almost like a code. Clara's heart quickened as she realized this could be the key to understanding the anomaly. Using one of the tools provided by the aliens, she began decoding the sequence, translating it into visual representations. What emerged left her breathless. The patterns weren't just technical glitches, they were signs of corruption. Something foreign and hostile had infiltrated Zircon's systems. The realization sent a chill down her spine. If the commander, the leader of this advanced species, could fall victim to such an intrusion, then the implications were staggering. Was this corruption spreading? Could it affect other Zorathians? Or worse, spill over into human territory? Determined to learn more, Clara delved deeper into her findings. She discovered faint traces of organic material intertwined with the metallic components of Zircon's armor. It wasn't biological in the traditional sense. It was something hybrid, a fusion of living tissue and machine. This revelation raised unsettling questions. Were the Zorathians entirely mechanical beings, or did they possess some form of biology? And if so, how vulnerable were they to this mysterious force? Her investigation took a darker turn when she uncovered evidence suggesting the corruption wasn't accidental. It bore hallmarks of deliberate design, subtle manipulations designed to weaken rather than destroy outright. Someone, or something, was targeting the Zorathians, exploiting their strengths to undermine them from within. Clara knew she couldn't keep this discovery to herself. Gathering her notes and recordings, she made her way back to Zircon's chamber. The commander stood where she had last seen him, unmoving and silent, as though waiting for her return. When she approached, he tilted his head slightly, acknowledging her presence. "I found something," Clara said, her voice trembling with urgency. There's corruption inside your armor. It's not natural. It's been put there intentionally." For a moment, Zircon didn't respond. Then, in a tone colder than she'd ever heard from him, he said, "We suspected as much." "You suspected?" Clara exclaimed, incredulous. "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" "It was not certain until now," Zircon replied, his voice heavy with resignation. "And we did not wish to alarm you unnecessarily." Clara stared at him, frustration bubbling beneath the surface. "Alarm me? You dragged me onto this ship, told me to inspect you, and now you're saying you already knew there might be something wrong. Do you have any idea how serious this is?" Zircon's silence spoke volumes. For all their advanced technology and stoic demeanor, the Zorathians were clearly struggling to confront this threat. Whatever was corrupting their systems was unlike anything they had faced before. Taking a deep breath, Clara forced herself to focus. "If this spreads, it could destroy everything you've worked for," she said firmly. "You need my help, not just to fix this, but to stop it from happening again." To her surprise, Zircon nodded slowly. "You are correct," he admitted. "Your perspective, your ingenuity, they may be our only hope." In that moment, Clara understood the true weight of her role. She wasn't just an engineer performing a routine inspection. She was a participant in a battle that spanned galaxies, a fight to preserve balance in a universe teetering on the edge of chaos. And though fear still lingered in the corners of her mind, determination burned brighter. Clara's mind raced as she processed the gravity of Zircon's admission. The corruption within his armor wasn't just a malfunction. It was an attack, deliberate and calculated. Whoever or whatever was behind it had targeted the Zorathians with precision, exploiting their very essence to destabilize them. Clara felt the enormity of the situation pressing down on her shoulders, but she refused to let panic take hold. If there was one thing she'd learned from years of problem-solving in engineering labs, it was that every challenge had a solution, if you were willing to dig deep enough. "Tell me everything," Clara said firmly, looking up at Zirkin. Her voice carried a newfound resolve, surprising even herself. "What exactly is this corruption? How does it work? And why haven't you been able to stop it?" Zirkin hesitated, his towering form momentarily still. For the first time since their encounter, Clara sensed vulnerability in him, a crack in the otherwise impenetrable facade of stoicism. He turned slightly, his visor reflecting the faint glow of the chamber's pulsating walls. "The corruption is parasitic," he explained after a pause. His words came slowly, as though each syllable weighed heavily on him. "It infiltrates our systems, feeding on our energy and distorting our purpose. It seeks not only destruction but chaos, a disruption of balance." Clara frowned, trying to piece together what he meant. "So it's not just targeting you physically, it's attacking your mission, your role as caretakers." "Yes," Zirkin confirmed solemnly. "If left unchecked, it will spread beyond me, unraveling the harmony we have sworn to protect." That revelation sent a shiver through Clara. She imagined entire galaxies thrown into disarray, civilizations collapsing under the weight of unchecked disorder. The stakes were unimaginable, far greater than anything humanity had ever faced. But even as fear crept into her thoughts, another part of her stirred, an engineer's instinct to solve problems, no matter how daunting. "I need to understand more about how your systems work," Clara said, stepping closer to him. "Your armor, is it purely mechanical, or is there some kind of biological component?" Zirkin extended his arm toward her once again, inviting her to continue her examination. This time, however, Clara approached with a different mindset. She wasn't merely inspecting. She was searching for answers, for weaknesses in the corruption's design. Using the advanced tools provided by the Zorethians, she began scanning deeper layers of his armor, focusing on the area near his chest plate where the irregularities were most pronounced. As the scanner hummed softly, Clara noticed something extraordinary. Beneath the metallic surface lay intricate networks of filaments, thin, glowing strands that pulsed with rhythmic energy. They reminded her of neurons in a human brain, yet they were intertwined with synthetic materials, creating a seamless blend of organic and artificial elements. It was breathtakingly complex, a testament to the Zorethians' mastery over both biology and technology. But amidst the beauty, Clara spotted the corruption. It manifested as dark tendrils creeping along the filaments, disrupting their natural flow. These tendrils weren't random. They followed specific pathways, hijacking energy and redirecting it toward unknown purposes. Clara realized with growing horror that the corruption wasn't just damaging Zirkin's systems, it was using them to grow stronger. "This is bad," Clara muttered under her breath, her fingers flying across the scanner's interface as she analyzed the data. "It's adapting. Whatever this is, it's learning." Zirkin's posture stiffened. "Learning?" "Yes," Clara replied grimly. "It's evolving, finding ways to resist detection and countermeasures. That's why it's so hard to contain." A heavy silence fell over the chamber. Clara could feel the weight of Zirkin's gaze on her, though she kept her focus on the task at hand. She knew she couldn't afford to lose momentum now. Every second counted. Suddenly, an idea struck her. If the corruption thrived by disrupting energy flows, perhaps she could isolate it by cutting off its access to those pathways. It was risky. Tampering with such delicate systems could cause catastrophic damage. But it might be their only chance. "I think I can create a containment field," Clara said, turning to face Zirkin. "Something that traps the corruption and prevents it from spreading further. But I'll need access to your neural network, the core of your systems." Zirkin's expression didn't change, but Clara sensed hesitation in his demeanor. "Accessing my neural network carries risks," he warned. "For both of us." "I know," Clara admitted. "But if we don't act now, The corruption will only get worse. We can't afford to wait. After a long moment, Zirkin nodded. Very well. Do what must be done. With renewed determination, Clara set to work. Using the tools at her disposal, she constructed a virtual interface that would allow her to connect directly to Zirkin's consciousness. The process was painstaking, requiring her to calibrate frequencies and synchronize protocols until the connection was stable. Finally, with a deep breath, she activated the link. In an instant, Clara found herself transported into a surreal mindscape, a vast expanse of shimmering light and shifting patterns. Towering structures made of crystalline material stretched endlessly in all directions, their surfaces etched with the same intricate designs she had seen on Zirkin's armor. As she moved forward, she realized these structures represented the commander's thoughts, memories, and emotions, all laid bare before her. But lurking within this dazzling landscape was the corruption. It took the form of a shadowy mass, writhing and twisting as it consumed everything in its path. Clara felt a chill run down her spine as she approached it cautiously. The entity seemed aware of her presence, recoiling briefly before lunging toward her. "You don't belong here," a voice whispered, echoing around her. It was cold, alien, and filled with malice. Clara stood her ground, gripping the virtual tool she had brought with her, a construct designed to neutralize the corruption's influence. "Maybe not," she said aloud, her voice steady despite the fear coursing through her veins. "But I'm not leaving until I fix this." The shadow surged forward, attempting to overwhelm her. But Clara was ready. With swift precision, she deployed the containment field, trapping the corruption within its boundaries. The entity thrashed violently, fighting against the barrier, but it couldn't escape. "It's working," Clara whispered, relief washing over her. Yet, as she watched the struggling mass, she knew this victory was only temporary. To truly eradicate the corruption, she would need to go deeper, to confront the source itself. And so, with determination burning brightly in her heart, Clara prepared to follow the corruption into its lair, wherever that might lead. Clara's breath hitched as she stared at the shadowy corruption writhing within the containment field. Its movements were frantic, desperate, and suffused with an intelligence that chilled her to the bone. The entity seemed aware of her presence, its tendrils probing the edges of the barrier like a predator testing the limits of its cage. She knew this was only the beginning. The corruption wasn't defeated, it was merely contained. To truly purge it, she would need to delve deeper into Zirkin's neural network, confronting the source head-on. Taking a deep breath, Clara steadied herself. The mindscape around her shimmered and shifted, responding to her resolve. Towering crystalline structures loomed overhead, their surfaces pulsating with light that mirrored Zirkin's consciousness. Every step she took sent ripples through the environment, distorting the patterns etched into the landscape. It was both beautiful and unnerving, a living representation of the commander's inner world. As she moved closer to the containment field, Clara felt a strange sensation wash over her. It wasn't fear exactly, but something more primal, an awareness of being watched. Turning her gaze upward, she saw fragments of memories materializing in the air around her. They appeared as fleeting images, flickering like old film reels. Some showed vast battlefields littered with alien wreckage. Others depicted serene planets bathed in golden sunlight. And then there were moments of quiet introspection. Zirkin standing alone on a desolate moon, his armor reflecting the stars above. These glimpses into the commander's psyche gave Clara pause. For all his stoic demeanor, Zirkin carried burdens far heavier than she had imagined. He wasn't just a leader or a soldier. He was a guardian tasked with maintaining balance across galaxies. The weight of that responsibility must have been crushing, yet he bore it without complaint. In those fleeting visions, Clara saw vulnerability, even doubt, emotions hidden beneath layers of discipline and duty. But there was no time to dwell on such thoughts. The corruption stirred violently, sensing her proximity. Its tendrils lashed out against the containment field, sending shockwaves rippling through the mindscape. Clara braced herself, gripping the virtual tool tightly in her hands. She knew what she had to do next: breach the field and confront the corruption directly. But doing so would expose her to its full force and risk losing herself entirely. Summoning every ounce of courage, Clara stepped forward. With a deft motion, she adjusted the parameters of the containment field, creating a narrow opening just wide enough for her to pass through. As soon as she crossed the threshold, the atmosphere changed. The vibrant colors of the mindscape dimmed, replaced by oppressive shadows that clung to her like a second skin. The air grew colder, heavier, pressing down on her with an almost physical weight. The corruption loomed ahead, now larger and more menacing than before. Its form shifted constantly, morphing from a swirling vortex to a jagged, claw-like shape. It radiated malice, its presence suffocating. Clara could feel it prodding her mind, attempting to unravel her thoughts and exploit her fears. Memories flashed unbidden. Her first failure as an engineer, the loss of loved ones, moments of self-doubt. Each one threatened to overwhelm her, dragging her deeper into despair. "No," Clara whispered fiercely, shaking off the intrusive thoughts. "Not here. Not now." She focused instead on the task at hand, channeling her determination into action. Using the virtual tool, she began constructing a firewall, the digital shield designed to isolate the corruption and sever its connection to Zircon's systems. The process was painstaking, requiring absolute precision. One misstep could destabilize the entire mindscape, potentially harming both her and the commander. The corruption fought back with increasing ferocity. Tendrils shot out, trying to disrupt her work. Shadows swirled around her, whispering insidious lies meant to break her concentration. "You're insignificant," they hissed. "What can you possibly hope to achieve?" Clara clenched her teeth, refusing to listen. She visualized the firewall taking shape, brick by brick, until it formed a solid barrier between the corruption and Zircon's core systems. But as the final piece fell into place, she realized something crucial. Sealing the corruption required a power source, a significant one. Her heart sank as the implications dawned on her. There was only one viable option: herself. Her life force, channeled through the interface, could provide the energy needed to complete the containment. It was a terrifying prospect, one that left her trembling with uncertainty. Could she really sacrifice herself for this mission? For someone who wasn't even human? Before she could hesitate further, a voice echoed softly in her mind. "Clara." It was Zircon. Somehow he had entered the mindscape alongside her, his presence manifesting as a faint glow in the distance. His figure approached cautiously, his visor reflecting the dim light of the corrupted realm. "You have done enough," he said, his tone softer than usual. "Do not burden yourself further." Clara shook her head, tears welling up in her eyes. "I can't leave this unfinished. If I don't do this, it'll spread to you, to your people, maybe even to Earth. I won't let that happen." Zircon stood silently for a moment, studying her with an intensity that transcended language. Then, to her surprise, he nodded. "If this is your choice, then know this: your actions will not be forgotten." With that, Clara turned back to the firewall. Taking a deep breath, she activated the final sequence, feeling her energy drain rapidly as it surged into the containment system. Pain coursed through her body, sharp and relentless, but she gritted her teeth and endured it. Around her, the corruption screamed in defiance, its form collapsing inward as the firewall sealed shut. And then silence. When Clara opened her eyes again, she found herself back in the chamber aboard the ship. Zircon stood before her, his posture less rigid, his visor clear of any distortion. He regarded her with what might have been gratitude, a subtle tilt of his head, a softening of his stance. "You succeeded," he said simply. Clara managed a weak smile, her strength fading fast. "Yeah, I guess I did." As darkness crept into the edges of her vision, she allowed herself a moment of relief. Whatever lay ahead, she had faced the impossible and emerged victorious. Clara's body felt heavy, Her limbs weighed down by an exhaustion she had never known before. Her vision blurred as the chamber around her swayed faintly, like a mirage on the edge of clarity. The neural interface had drained her, every ounce of energy, every reserve of strength. But it wasn't just physical fatigue that gripped her. The mental toll of confronting the corruption in Zirkin's mindscape lingered, haunting her thoughts even as she struggled to stay conscious. Zirkin stood over her, his towering form now exuding a quiet calm that hadn't been there before. The tension in his posture was gone, replaced by something softer, something almost human. Clara could see it in the way he moved, deliberate yet gentle, as though he understood the gravity of what she had done for him and his people. For the first time since their encounter, Clara felt a flicker of connection with the alien commander, not just as a being of immense power, but as someone who carried burdens too great to bear alone. "You risked yourself," Zirkin said finally, his voice resonating softly in the chamber. "Why?" Clara blinked slowly, trying to focus on his words despite the haze clouding her mind. She managed a weak shrug, her lips curling into a faint smile. "It wasn't just about you," she murmured. "If that thing spread, well, I couldn't let it destroy everything you're working to protect. Your mission, it matters." Her answer seemed to unsettle him. He tilted his head slightly, studying her with an intensity that made her feel exposed. "You do not owe us this sacrifice," he replied. "Humans are fragile, short-lived compared to my kind. Yet you willingly gave so much." "I didn't think about it like that," Clara admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "I just acted. Isn't that what leaders do? Make choices, even when they're hard." For a moment, Zirkin was silent. Then, unexpectedly, he knelt beside her, lowering himself to her level. It was such an uncharacteristic gesture that Clara found herself staring at him in disbelief. Was this gratitude, respect, or perhaps something deeper, a recognition of shared purpose between two vastly different beings? "Your actions have altered the course of events," Zirkin continued, his tone carrying a weight she couldn't fully comprehend. "The corruption will be contained for now, but its origin remains unknown. This is not over." Clara nodded weakly, though the effort sent a wave of dizziness crashing over her. She knew he was right. Whatever force had targeted the Zorathians wasn't likely to give up so easily. Still, the immediate threat had been neutralized, and that was enough for now. As if sensing her fading strength, Zirkin extended one hand toward her. Clara hesitated, unsure what he intended to do. But when she placed her trembling palm against his armored gauntlet, she felt a surge of warmth flow through her, a subtle pulse of energy that revitalized her weary body. It wasn't healing exactly, but it was enough to steady her breathing and clear her vision. "This is unacceptable," Zirkin stated firmly, rising to his full height once more. "You must recover. My crew will assist you." Before Clara could protest, the chamber doors slid open, revealing several Zorathians standing in wait. They approached silently, their movements fluid and synchronized. One of them held a glowing device similar to the tools Clara had used earlier during her inspection. Without hesitation, they began scanning her vitals, adjusting settings on the device until a soothing hum filled the air. "What are they doing?" Clara asked, her voice steadier now. "They are stabilizing your condition," Zirkin explained. "Your sacrifice has earned our aid. Rest assured, we will ensure your survival." Clara wanted to argue, to insist that she didn't need special treatment, but the exhaustion gripping her body left little room for defiance. Instead, she allowed herself to relax, trusting that these beings, for all their enigmatic nature, meant no harm. As the Zorathians worked, she drifted in and out of consciousness, catching fragments of conversation exchanged among them. "She demonstrates remarkable resilience," one of them remarked, their voice echoing in Clara's mind. "She defied expectations," another responded. "Perhaps humanity is more capable than we assumed." These words stirred something within Clara, a spark of pride mingled with hope. If her actions had changed how the Zorathians viewed humans, Then maybe this encounter would pave the way for greater understanding between their species. Maybe cooperation, rather than fear or mistrust, could define their future relationship. When she finally regained full awareness, hours, or perhaps days, had passed. Clara found herself lying on a soft surface in a new chamber, surrounded by dim lights that pulsed rhythmically, mimicking the sensation of breathing. The pain and fatigue that had consumed her earlier were gone, replaced by a sense of renewal she hadn't expected. Sitting up cautiously, she noticed Zirkin standing nearby, his visor reflecting the faint glow of the walls. "You've recovered," he observed, his tone neutral but tinged with satisfaction. "I guess so," Clara replied, swinging her legs over the edge of the platform. She stretched tentatively, marveling at how normal her body felt. "Thanks to you, and your crew." Zirkin inclined his head slightly. "We merely returned what you gave us. Balance." His words struck a chord deep within her. Balance, the very concept the Zorathians lived by. Clara realized now that her role in this ordeal had been more significant than she'd initially thought. By helping Zirkin, she hadn't just saved him. She had contributed to preserving the harmony his people worked tirelessly to maintain. But as much as she appreciated their gratitude, Clara couldn't ignore the lingering questions gnawing at her mind. What had caused the corruption? Where had it come from? And why had it targeted the Zorathians specifically? These mysteries still loomed large, unresolved, and potentially dangerous. "I want to help you find answers," Clara said suddenly, surprising even herself. "Whatever attacked you, it might come back. We should prepare." Zirkin regarded her thoughtfully, his visor unreadable. "Your determination is commendable," he said after a pause. "But you must understand, the path ahead is perilous. Are you certain you wish to continue?" Clara met his gaze without flinching. "I'm sure. You trusted me enough to let me into your mind. Now it's my turn to show I can handle whatever comes next." A flicker of approval crossed Zirkin's features, or at least, that's how Clara interpreted the subtle shift in his posture. "Very well," he said. "Together, we will uncover the truth." As they left the chamber side by side, Clara felt a renewed sense of purpose. Whatever challenges awaited them, she was ready to face them, not just for herself, but for the fragile alliance forming between humanity and the Zorathians. In giving part of herself to save Zirkin, she had forged a bond stronger than any technology or language barrier. And in doing so, she had taken the first step toward a future where coexistence wasn't just possible, it was inevitable. The return to Earth was both a relief and an awakening for Clara Voss. As the Zorathian ship descended through the atmosphere, she watched from the observation deck, her hands pressed against the cool metallic railing. Below her stretched the familiar blue-green expanse of her home planet, a sight that filled her with gratitude, but also a newfound perspective. She wasn't just looking at Earth anymore. She saw it as part of something larger, a tiny piece in a vast cosmic puzzle. The knowledge she had gained aboard the alien vessel weighed heavily on her shoulders, yet it also ignited a spark of hope within her heart. When the ship landed outside New Geneva, humanity's capital city, Clara stepped out into the bright sunlight alongside Commander Zirkin. The scene that greeted them was chaotic. Crowds of people gathered behind barricades, cameras flashing, reporters shouting questions in dozens of languages. Military personnel stood guard, their weapons trained cautiously on the towering alien figure who accompanied Clara. Despite the tension in the air, there was also awe. For the first time in history, humans were standing face to face with extraterrestrial life, not as enemies, but as allies. Zirkin moved with deliberate calm, his armor gleaming under the sun. He ignored the commotion around him, focusing instead on Clara. "Your species is curious," he remarked, his voice resonating softly in her mind. Clara chuckled nervously. "You have no idea." As they made their way toward a hastily assembled delegation of world leaders, Clara couldn't help but notice the mix of fear and wonder etched on the faces of those watching. Some clutched signs welcoming the aliens, while others held placards demanding answers. It was clear that humanity was divided, unsure how to react to this unprecedented event. But Clara knew one thing for certain. The choices made in the coming days would shape the future of both species. Inside the conference hall, representatives from every corner of the globe sat around a massive circular table. The atmosphere was tense, electric with anticipation. When Clara entered alongside Zirkin, a hush fell over the room. All eyes turned to them, some filled with admiration, others with suspicion. Clara took a deep breath and stepped forward, addressing the assembly. "Before you ask questions," she began, her voice steady despite the weight of the moment, "let me tell you what I've learned. The Zorethians aren't here to harm us. They're caretakers, guardians of balance across galaxies. Their leader, Commander Zirkin, entrusted me with a mission to help protect not only his people but potentially all of us. What we faced together was a threat unlike anything we've encountered before, a corruption capable of unraveling entire civilizations. And though we contained it for now, the danger hasn't disappeared." Her words hung in the air, met with stunned silence. Then, slowly, murmurs erupted throughout the room. Questions flew from every direction. What is the corruption? Where did it come from? Can we trust these aliens? Clara raised her hands to quiet the crowd, glancing briefly at Zirkin for reassurance. "We don't have all the answers yet," she admitted. "But we do know this. Isolation won't save us. If we want to survive, we need to work together, not just among ourselves, but with the Zorethians. This isn't about borders or politics. It's about survival, about finding common ground." To everyone's surprise, Zirkin stepped forward, his towering form commanding attention. Though his expression remained unreadable, his voice carried a solemn authority. "Humanity stands at a crossroads," he said, his words translating seamlessly into every language present. "Your actions will determine not only your fate but the fate of countless others. We offer our knowledge, our technology, and our alliance, but only if you prove yourselves worthy." The room fell silent once more, the gravity of his statement settling over the delegates like a heavy blanket. Clara could see the wheels turning in their minds, weighing the risks and rewards of such an alliance. Finally, one of the leaders, an elderly woman representing the United Earth Council, spoke up. "If we agree to this partnership," she said cautiously, "what do you expect from us?" Zirkin tilted his head slightly, considering her question. "Cooperation," he replied simply. "Openness, a willingness to learn and adapt. You possess qualities my kind lacks: creativity, resilience, unpredictability. Together, we can achieve far more than either of us could alone." Clara felt a surge of pride hearing him acknowledge humanity's strengths. It was a reminder that even amidst uncertainty, there was potential for growth, if only people were willing to embrace it. Over the following weeks, the groundwork for collaboration began taking shape. Scientists from around the world worked side by side with Zorethian engineers, sharing insights and developing solutions to combat the lingering threat of corruption. Clara played a central role in these efforts, acting as a bridge between the two species. Her experiences aboard the Zorethian ship earned her respect from both sides, making her uniquely qualified to mediate discussions and foster understanding. Before departing Earth, Zirkin presented Clara with a gift, a small shard of crystalline material glowing faintly with an inner light. "This contains fragments of our knowledge," he explained, "a token of gratitude, and a symbol of our bond." Clara accepted it with trembling hands, overwhelmed by the gesture. "Thank you," she whispered, "for trusting me." Zirkin inclined his head slightly, his visor reflecting the soft glow of the crystal. "Trust goes both ways," he replied. "Do not forget that." As the Zorethian ship ascended into the sky, leaving behind a changed world, Clara stood gazing upward, clutching the shard tightly in her hand. She knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy. There would be challenges, misunderstandings, and perhaps even resistance from those unwilling to accept change. But she also knew that humanity had taken its first step toward a brighter future, one defined not by fear, but by cooperation. In the months that followed, Clara became a beacon of hope, traveling across the globe to share her story and inspire others to embrace the possibilities of interstellar partnership. News outlets dubbed her the engineer who saved the galaxy, though she always insisted it wasn't just her. It was humanity working alongside the Zorathians that had made the difference. And somewhere among the stars, Zirkin and his crew continued their mission, ever vigilant against the forces of chaos. Clara often wondered if their paths would cross again. Until then, she carried the lessons she had learned aboard the ship, the importance of courage, sacrifice, and unity. For better or worse, the universe had changed forever, and Clara Voss, once an ordinary engineer, now stood at the forefront of a new era, one where humans and aliens alike dared to dream of harmony among the cosmos.